You're listening to the audio portion of Workshop Wednesdays. Workshop Wednesdays is a free live discussion about topics affecting accountants, bookkeepers, and business owners. You can join the ABO group in Facebook to participate live Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Pacific Time. Just search for ABBO in Facebook. This podcast is brought to you by Schoolofbookkeeping.com, where you will learn, grow, and build a thriving bookkeeping practice. We have hundreds of lessons with almost every aspect of the industry. Start your free month today at Schoolofbookkeeping.com. Well, welcome to another Workshop Wednesday brought to you by Schoolofbookkeeping.com, helping you be the best bookkeeper that you can be because we have casual conversations for a serious workflow. And of course, we're being joined again by Rachel. So we have an announcement to make for the Workshop Wednesday family, those of you that are watching. Rachel has graciously accepted to become the new co-host of the Workshop Wednesday. So thrilled to have you joining us again, and we'll see more of you on a regular basis. Rachel, what are your thoughts about this option?
Well, I'm really excited. I don't like to talk about bookkeeping or accounting at all, obviously, you can tell. No, it's pretty much the only thing I do talk about. My kids always tell me to be quiet. So, yeah, I love it. I love working out issues. I have every single day, I have something that I think to myself, I don't know how to do this. So, because there's just so many diverse things that we come across that the only way I think to be successful in this industry when we're supporting clients is to really rely on each other and tune in and check in to what everybody's doing. And hopefully I can learn as much as I can, and so can everybody else.
Yeah, so we're not only will you be a co-host, but you'll also be a guinea pig because you come up with some you come up with some interesting things to talk about as far as like, how do I do this inside of QuickBooks? Rachel had joined us for our e-commerce fundamentals discussion and series that we did a couple months back. And so now we're getting into some of the more advanced stuff that is not necessarily a fundamental type of thing when it comes to e-commerce. Today, we're actually going to be talking a little bit about something that's a little bit more advanced when it comes to e-commerce accounting. And it's really one of those things that I have discovered, and I don't know about you, Rachel, your thoughts on this, is that a lot of the applications that are out there that, and especially Shopify, as we'll talk about, but Shopify fees, getting those fees into QuickBooks. And we'll discuss like where we're at without any integrations. And then, so basically lay out what the problem is. And then we'll talk about how we can work with that. But I
Yes.
haven't seen any integrator that really addresses this sort of thing. Have you?
Well, Dex, which I know we're going to talk about.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. But when you look at, okay, how do I get my Shopify sales data into QuickBooks? Those integrators are all over that.
Right.
Let's get the sales data.
Yeah, there's a lot that will bring in income, but
Yeah.
for expenses, it's a little bit harder because I don't know about you, but I've noticed that they have a lot of time. The automation integrators have a hard time splitting up the different expenses into different categories.
Yeah.
And so that kind of thing really just does require some manual stuff sometimes when it comes in through the bank feed, but Dex does do a great job with it.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about a couple different ways. I took it upon myself. I really want to crack this nut here because the last thing we want to do is just rely on one thing or one tool either doesn't do things holistically or paints the right picture. Because let me share my screen and we'll talk about what the problem is, right? So I'm looking at the back end of a Shopify store, and this is the billing section, right? Where Shopify will charge the Shopify owner a fee, a dollar amount. So this last fee was $319.45. We look at it, right? Those fees are broken out into a variety of things. So this guy has some apps and shipping, 15 shipping fees, and then subscription, right? So those are the general categories that we're dealing with here that make up this $319, right? As a bookkeeper, Rachel, you would want to categorize these 3 areas in 3 different places because apps are one thing, shipping is another, and this is shipping what it costs them to ship,
Right.
not shipping income because again, those sales bridges or connectors, uh,
Grayed out is
they do
usually
that
what I call it.
they do them well, they do that just fine. They do the income side of things, what they charge the customer for shipping. But what Shopify charges their customer, the Shopify store owner, they put in here. Right. So
Yeah.
this is part of the challenge. So this is something that you would want to categorize. You certainly don't want your shipping, subscription, and apps to be collapsed upon in the same thing, right? So here we look at here's this transaction, $319.47. That's going to if you rely on the bank fee, that's well, one, that's going to change. This amount is going to change monthly or all the time. You look at the other charges and they're never the same fee, right? So you're not going to, sometimes there's going to be more shipping. Sometimes there's going to be less apps. Um, sometimes there's going to be a credit. Talk about that because that's more of a, that's a one-off type of thing.
But if they're a
So,
high volume, there's
yeah,
gonna be a shipping credit usually every single time.
right. So this $1 amount that comes in is always going to be segregated differently each time, right? Because maybe they added some apps this month, or the shipping is different, or the variety of different things. So therein lies the challenge,
Yes, and can
right?
I tell you what I used to do in the very beginning when I started?
Mhm.
Several years ago now, somebody told me, "Oh, that's just shipping." So out of the bank feeds, I would
Mhm.
just quote it straight to shipping. And then I
Right.
thought, "Oh, wait a second, I should go into Shopify and pull the backup so I can attach it."
Yeah.
Oh, wouldn't you know,
What
shipping,
is this?
app, and subscription. And I thought, "Oh boy." And so what I started doing is I just started splitting it right out of
Mhm.
the bank feed. And then we get into well, I actually really don't want to do this manually straight out of the bank feed and then go into Shopify and grab the actual invoice. And so that's where we are.
Right. So what we're dealing with is, okay, how do we get, and I did the same thing, but I just put it to sales channel Shopify subscription fees,
Yeah.
right? But
And all it
I
takes is
realized,
one person that inadvertently everybody means well, but just steer you down the wrong direction.
yeah,
And it's really only when you go and poke around and then you end up finding it and then you realize, oh, nope,
okay.
gotta be split.
Okay.
Thanks, Shopify, for lumping that all in one thing.
Exactly. This is part of the challenge of what we end up dealing with as accounting professionals, that Shopify does its thing well and it allows people to sell stuff online. They're not necessarily too concerned about what happens after that, right? Like I was just talking with someone, they're using Stripe and they're doing everything through Stripe, and they charge a transaction fee for their customers. And what they did was they keep creating new transaction fee items and they spell them differently. Capitalization matters, right? So then it comes in as a unique item, right? And then so it just bogs down the works, right? Because they're
Yeah.
doing things that they need to do to make their business go and make sales. And that's what Shopify and Stripe do well, is make that available to to
Yeah.
bring up
And I
sales.
also want to just add in one more thing too. FYI, when we see these Shopify charges come in, these are typically always for shipping, subscription, and apps. I have a lot of Shopify clients, and it's really only these three things. It's never Shopify Capital. So you're going to see that separately, and there's a separate place to go in and look for Shopify Capital. It is not this. We're just talking about expenses.
All right. So I'm going to throw this over here because what I did was while you were talking there, I exported the bill, right? And what happened is that bill got sent to me as a CSV file, right?
Mhm.
So if look, here is the charge category, right? And the individual charges that are listed there. So what I did, or what we want to do, is go into QuickBooks and create an item for this charge category. And then that way you can specify what account that needs to post it to. So I have, let's go over and look here. So it's got, I created a non-inventory item called apps and then posting that. Go down here. Here's where we want the apps to go to as a sub account of sales channel fees, right? So that way, when he looks at his profit and loss, he can see how much am I spending on apps to Shopify. We do is going to use this tool called Sasan, right? So um, I don't have to do anything to the CSV because I'm using the tool Sasan here to be able to map and manipulate the data based off of what's already there. You just upload the CSV file. It's already got the columns mapped to where I need it to map to. And then what I can do is I can show a prior one.
Yeah.
And so let me go back over here. Where is okay, so here's a prior one for $581. So if we go back over here, we'll take a look at this. 581. Right? And this is one of those that has a shipping credit
Mm.
shenanigans, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But so now by using the Sasant tool and mapping it appropriately, all I have to do is export the bill and then use Sasant to map it to as a new import through the company and then just process it. I don't even have to
Dan, can I
modify
ask you a
anything
question? Why are you choosing to send it as an expense and not a bill?
because they've already paid it, right? So this is already something that's been paid, right? So this is not a bill to pay later. It's they charged their credit card 581. So it's
Okay,
already
that makes sense.
expense, right?
Yes.
So this is what happens is it creates an expense transaction. I will post it to Shopify sales channel fees clearing. Yay, more clearing accounts. But this is just another current asset account that I created to so that you can create the expense. Right. And it breaks these things down exactly the same way that the export was. So
Love that.
it has all the apps, it has all the shipping, and it gives a little bit more detail about the different shipping so that if they ever needed to look at it from the QuickBooks perspective, they'll have that information there. And then the only challenge though, and this is part of Shopify's shenanigans, is, and I reached out to Shopify just to confirm, is this shipping credit. So when there is a shipping credit, meaning that they printed a shipping label and then maybe the customer canceled the order, right? So they obviously don't need to ship it to anybody anymore. So they'll
Mhm.
cancel the
Yeah.
shipping and then they'll get the shipping credit. It's not part of the exported bill, which for some reason, which that makes zero sense to me or anyone else that would be that because that's part of the challenges that we when we see this with these sales channels or the way things happen in platform X that impacts platform Y, right? So you have to, if there is a shipping credit or if there is some kind of credit, application credit or something like that, it ends up showing up differently. We can only provide so much feedback to Shopify before they change something and put it where it's supposed to go.
I
So
didn't realize that it wasn't included in the export
yeah,
CSV because I haven't
yeah,
done it that way. When I
yeah,
was doing it, like I said, I would just go in and I would just pull the actual bill and I would just break it down and add the credit. And so I wasn't getting the line by line by line. I would just
yeah,
take subtotal. And I love that this has the line by line, but I guess you're right. If it doesn't have the shipping credit, then you'd have to and maybe add that in Sasamp and then upload
yeah.
it. Which
But
I do like that line by line. And yeah, you're right. I guess I was thinking if I could do it as a bill, then I could do recurring, but it's never the same amount
right,
ever. So that wouldn't work. Yeah.
exactly. So that's the whole idea of this process of being able to do that. You can set up some more kind of automations with if you don't have access to to the Shopify dashboard, which a lot of accountants, bookkeeping professionals won't or don't want to. Maybe that's part of their scope. or anything like that. They can export the bill and then just forward it to you or things like that. Because as soon as you click on export bill, it emails it to whoever the user was that did it, right? So they could set up an auto forwarding rule for that sort of thing so that it automatically comes to you. And then you've got that breakdown as a CSV to bring it in that way, assuming you have an active subscription to SaaS. So that's one of the ways to do that. And that is part of the challenge that we have as accounting pros that we're working with the Shopify clients is that Shopify doesn't care about this kind of stuff. They'll just bill them and then it either goes to one account, not split out, or somebody has to then get that information to be able to make that split manually. This way, the lion's share, with the exception of the credits, it's going to be already and automatically done for you. But you do it a little differently, and I wanted to talk about how you do that. And I don't know why that's decided to show it that way, but there's your screen. Now, what do you use to do this sort of thing?
Yeah. Oops. Hold on. Let me go. Because I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to show all that. But anyway, so I'll show this. I'll go into that add documents and show how you can do an auto push. But what I do want to say though is I do not recommend depending on your client for all the things in Shopify. What that's mandated by me, I have to go in as a Shopify collaborator. So I don't get added as a staff. I actually go in as a collaborator. And then they give me access to different things, including apps so I can add text and just things like that. And then I can just pull the bills and pull the things. Otherwise, I find that it just eats up so much time. So that's just a little
Yeah.
tip that I usually always say is, and a lot of bookkeepers and accountants will say to me, I don't ever have access to that. And I usually always say, get it, because otherwise
Yeah.
it's really difficult to
Yeah.
do Shopify
It's just going to
bookkeeping.
slow your workflow down when you need something that you
Yeah,
don't have access
yeah,
to.
and then sometimes the bookkeepers will say, like, clients don't want to. And my answer is there are ways that if you become a Shopify partner and collaborator, then you can go in that way and it's completely separated. You're not, they can give you, they can not
They
give you
can get
access
very
to their
they can get
items,
very
to their
granular on what they
yeah, you
look
can
at.
get very granular. So that's a really important thing that you can then go and tell your client is that I'll request collaborator access, powers in your hands. You can tick the box of what I have access to, this and that. I
Mm.
usually always need reports and things like that. I do recommend that. I personally wouldn't take on a Shopify client if they didn't give me access to their Shopify. But anyway, okay. My team is super, super fast in Dex. So I have to, I was like, I opened this up and I was like, I better do this before she goes in and does it. So this client is not on Shopify, but they have a lot of receipts pending. So that's why I
Uh,
just wanted to use this for example. This one, Dex opens up with a dashboard with all of the receipts that either they have uploaded or that have auto fetched. And with this one, they usually have a combination of both. This client uploads receipts and then sometimes it's auto fetched. For
Let me
example, I'll
time
open up this
time
one.
out there. So let me ask you. So
Totally.
as far as the Shopify goes with Dex, you have to add it as an
Yes.
I in order
Yeah.
for it
So
to
I was just going
auto
to
fetch.
show, I was actually getting ahead of myself. I was
Yeah.
showing how to categorize it when the thing is open, but actually I'm going to go in and show what you need to do first. So what you would need to do first in order to set it up is you can see right here, Dext has this feature called invoice fetch. Okay. So I'm going to click on that and I am going to show where you can actually add a connection. And they don't have any invoice fetch on this one, but I would add connection here. And this is the greatest thing in the world because what it does is it
You're
just
a fan.
maps. Huh?
You're a fan.
Yeah, I really like it. So what it'll do is it'll give you recommended, but if you want to see the full list, then you can search. So I am going to search for Shopify and you
There
can
it
see
is.
right here. There we go. Now, all of this does is give you the bills. That's it. No, nothing else. But again, this is what we're talking about, just the bills.
Yep.
So I can select the user and then I can ask client connect. It'll send them a thing where they put in their Shopify credentials, or I can connect it myself. And that's what I was just referring to is if I have app permissions, which I'd always request access to, then I can connect it myself. That kind of stuff saves me oodles of time. Now, here's the one thing that I will say is that darn connection sometimes breaks. And so
Mm.
then you have to go back in and reconnect Shopify. But all you do is just go back in and reconnect it. It's not the end of the world. But what it will do is then in your dashboard here, you will see Shopify, Shopify, Shopify. You'll see all the bills. And then you can just let them collect for the month. And then you can go in and then publish them to QuickBooks as an expense. You can either choose bill, you can either choose expense, whatever. And then I'm going to go in to this one. I just don't want to show. Okay. I don't want to show that. I don't want it. Doesn't show the number. Okay. Here is where you can then split the receipt. And that's what I was saying before is this is actually how I did it before. Rather than get the line items, like you could publish it to
But you would see an image of the bill,
yes,
and
an
then
image of the bill. And what I would do is
you'd be able to
just to
make
get it.
that split
Yeah.
here.
So in Dext, if you say cash, it just goes as an expense. If you want it as a bill, then you could go to bill. Cash makes it just go straight so it matches up with what's in the bank feed. So you would create your line item here, and then here is where you can split it. And then I would just literally add a line down here for the credit. And then you can see it gives you an area where you can describe, you can say what it is. So you can say shipping right there if you need to. And then this client's on WooCommerce, not Shopify. So that's why we're not seeing the Shopify stuff. But anyways, and then if you needed to do it to the product service item and all of the things, you can even split it up by class and location and total up your entire thing. It'll even help balance it out for you if you need to. And then you select the payment method that it's going to. If it's going to the checking account, you select that. And then it'll give you a little description of your little sub split here. And then you can publish it. It can give you other nice options to add it to an expense report. If you're using that feature, that Shopify probably wouldn't go to an expense report, but Dex has all kinds of different features that you could. But now that's how I used to do it. And so I wasn't doing the line item. The bill would pop up right here. And I would literally just take the subtotals, split it out, boom, send it, call it a day. And for very high, I had a client that had 3 Shopify stores, so I had it in threefold, and it was just constant. They were coming once a month, they were coming several per week, and I would have to go through many a lot. So, that to me, this was the faster way. I don't know if I how do I stop sharing that?
I'll just turn it off.
Oh, so I don't know if that it's funny. See, and we're all different. I find doing it that way is faster maybe than bringing it in through Sasant. I don't or Sasant. I don't everybody calls it something different. And it really just depends on what's fast for you and what's your preference. I would have to say if you are pulling it into Dex with auto fetch, what
Mhm.
I would recommend actually is if you actually share that again, I forgot to show something. What I would do is I would actually go into, I would create rules because
Mhm.
you can create rules. Suppliers, you can create rules in here and then you can say anything that's, I don't know how you do that. I forgot how you do that in here. Maybe you do it in
You
comp.
you can specify based on the vendor.
Yes, you can specify based on the vendor, and then I believe you can also do it based on the you can unshare this now, based on the what's it called? The like in QuickBooks Online, those rules where it'll take like description, you can say specify the GL expense accounts for this, that, and that, and it'll split it. And then you can have it on auto post. I actually really haven't even gotten into that yet, but there's a lot of different options. And so I'm inclined to do it this way because I like that auto fetch. I don't want to really have to go into
Yeah.
Shopify, although I am in Shopify every day, but I just really, I like it coming into Next. It's one of those things
Yes.
where I've adopted
I
that.
would appreciate the automatic
My
fetching of that
team
invoice.
yeah, my team, telling you, this is why I had nothing indexed because they're really fast and they go index quickly and push everything. We're all trained on it. We all use it. And so that's for me, that's the way I like to do it. But I also like doing it that Sassant way too, because I do appreciate having the individual line items. I like it that way.
Yeah, that's my next figuring is how do we make this automatic, right? So that that split just happens automatically, which it really should, right? Because that's the whole beauty of automation and things that do have that happen automatically. You're just doing your work and your bookkeeping is done for you. That's the thing that would be wonderful. So if I didn't have to sign into Shopify and download, export the bill, and
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
it
Or at
doesn't
least,
take long and it takes significantly less time than manually changing it. And I don't know, maybe we'll have to do a race to see
yeah.
who does it better, who does it faster
Yeah, because I like to
from
do it
start to
pretty
finish.
fast. And then also, what I was gonna say is you definitely I can't do it 100% for you, but it can definitely assist you, which I really
Yeah. And
now
then
I'm
at the end of
actually
the
looking in the
day,
Shopify App Store right now. I'm looking for a Shopify bill automator because guess what? Maybe there's something there.
yeah, I'm sure someone has come up with, but even some of the automation tools that work off of triggers like Zapier, that was the first thing that I thought. I was like, okay, if that charge report is available as a trigger, then you could trigger that automation through Zapier.
Yeah.
It's still, that is not one of the functions that they're allowed to trigger off of, which is sad because again, this is holistically, Shopify being a sales channel, you don't just want to work on the sales side of things. It's the whole picture. And you
But
want
then that would mean that the folks at the Shoppa folk, that's what they're called, would have to really think about all of the accounting involved and how we would like it.
all of the other
Experience.
workflow. I mean, all of the
Right,
other,
right. Yeah.
yeah,
So they would have to take our considerations into account. And I've not typically seen that.
yeah. You'll get the Milton from Office Space. Yeah, we're gonna need you to move down to the basement because now we're gonna
Yeah,
throw
yeah.
shipping
Although,
credits
wait a
as a
minute. I thought
non-existent
Milton,
line.
yeah, I thought Milton was the guy with the red stapler. He's the
Yeah,
one that had to go.
yeah, yeah. You're treated like Milton.
Oh, it's treated like Milton, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't wanna be Milton. So, there isn't anything in the Shopify App Store except for Sales Sync, of course. But yeah, I would be curious to know if there is something that could automate that, but
Well,
yeah,
the
anyway.
only person that's really concerned about it is the book bec because they wanna classify these things accordingly, uh, and then ultimately the business owner would wanna know that because
Yes.
then now you
Yeah.
can tell that. Now you can tell them, "Okay, of this $500, 357 of it was for shipping."
Yeah, and it is actually it's really important, this split, because for some reason, they just bundle all them up into one charge, and when you have a really high volume seller or you've got multiple stores, which Dan and I'm saying Dan like a third person, you and I tend to have because you and I are both very inventory focused, and that's really pretty much all I do now. This this can get this can add up really fast.
Mhm.
And it's really important for them to see freight out. I always call it freight out. I think that's the appropriate thing to call it. And even subscriptions, because sometimes that's crazy. And then the apps, like sometimes they just add, or they've got other people in their operation that are just adding, and then it's recurring every single
Yep,
month. This is something that I find that business owners, really find valuable. So you really don't want to just
yeah,
trust what's coming through the bank feed. Really do understand what's going on with your Shopify fees.
right. There's a guy that I used to work with at Intuit. He would say, "In God we trust, all others bring actionable data." And that's what this is doing, is allowing you to provide a business owner actionable data, not just, "Okay, you're spending $500 a month on
Yeah.
Shopify. Um, that's a cost of doing business with them."
Yeah, and as long as I've moved into more accounting once we do have the accurate books. It's one of those things where you don't want bookkeeping just to be your mechanism to plug those numbers into your tax return. No. You want to make sure that you have this accurate data at the transaction level to fully operate your business. And the more information you have that's really breaking it down, the more successful the
Right.
business will be. 100%.
And then you can actually use this as more of a value add to your client
Yeah.
and command a higher fee
Yep.
because you're actually bringing this to the table for them to be able to make business decisions based off of the data that's collected.
Yeah, and all the e-com specialists that I know that are really cool and I idolize and they're incredible accountants, trust me, they do this and they know what they're doing and they know industry standards and they know typically what goes on in this world and what you should be looking at and what are typical costs and so what are typical percentages and margins and that kind of stuff. So the more you can really become a specialist that way, they'll really value you and definitely command a better rate.
And this is not beholden just to online sellers or Shopify. This is just anything that will allow you to make expand on the dollar amount, whatever that happens to be, so that you can actually see what is making up this number. Your whole business was all based off of, okay, do not live in the bank feed for a payout of a
Yeah,
credit card deposit because, and don't just put it all to revenue because there is a breakdown of that
yeah,
dollar amount and you need to understand what that breakdown is for. Just like living, people live paycheck to paycheck. There's a gross pay, there's taxes, there's all this other stuff, 401k deductions and all that, like that ends up with the net pay. You really want to understand all of the other things behind that net transaction.
yeah. That's what makes you really a successful business owner is you know all those things. Wait, I want to ask you one last question because before we go. Now, I put these things in a specific place on the P&L. So, where do you typically put them?
As we had talked on the fundamentals, anything that is dedicated to sales, the sales process would be a cost of goods sold. But
Yeah, that's how
the,
I do it.
the
Yeah, these are so these what we've been talking about this whole time are cost of goods sold because they're cost of selling these things. It's a cost that is incurred from selling your items. That's really what we
right.
determine as cost of goods
Now,
sold.
where you can look at both sides of the equation is the apps and the subscription, right? Like it's really hard to get to the cost of a sale
Mhm.
as opposed to apps and subscriptions. Those would be more of an overhead type of thing that you could feasibly
Yeah, you could go
proportionately.
either or with those, but I still to put them in cost of goods sold
Yep.
just because I feel like they're directly related to your platform. Your platform is really essentially the representative of your items. And so that's usually where I put it. And in the chats that I've had with other people in the industry, that's usually where they do too. That's what I go off of. But
Right. Because
I don't know. I mean,
if you didn't have that sales channel, you wouldn't have that sale.
yeah,
Or you
exactly.
feasibly make
Exactly.
the argument that way.
Yeah. But I'm sure maybe somebody could come and argue that it's
The other way. Yeah.
not, and that's all fine and great too.
All right. So always a pleasure to see you. And thank you for joining us. And thank you for accepting this co-hosting duties. So next week we'll be continuing our workshop Wednesdays. We'll figure out something to talk about next week, but it won't be Shopify fees. But I do need to go and figure out why the subscription seemed to fail for my client because I deleted a transaction for the sake of this workshop. And now I got to get it back in there.
I don't know, but if I could only tell you, if I had a nickel for and how many times that's happened in my SaaS,
Yeah.
I would be a millionaire.
There you go. Then we wouldn't be talking because you'd be retiring on nickels.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Dan.
All right. Everybody have a great week and we'll see you next time on the workshop Wednesday.